When you're working in Excel, have you ever bumped into something that you want to do and yet you can't seem to figure out a way to do it? Well, it could be that paste special, one of those features that is there but tends to be overlooked, could be your answer. Hi, I'm Terry, one of the Consumer Technology Specialists for Mid-Continent Public Library, and today we are going to look at some of those options with Paste Special that can make your life so much easier. When we look at using Paste Special, we'll find that it starts with copy, and then instead of a paste, we'll do a paste special. Now there are two places where you might consider going to look for that paste special. One of them is at the clipboard, which is in that first group on the Home tab. And of course, first we would copy. So let me click on a cell, click on the copy button, and then we get the paste button. Now we want to click where we would paste or paste special, and then go back to the paste button that's now colorized, click on the drop down arrow, and as we look at all these different icons for paste, most of them are a kind of paste special. So of course we have the plain paste, but then to the right of that we could paste formulas only, formulas and number formatting, source formatting. Coming down we could do paste values and several kinds of paste values. Or if you're not familiar with these icons and you're not even maybe comfortable with them, you can always come down to Paste Special, where you get a dialog box where now you're reading words rather than looking at pictures. And again, you have those same choices of formulas, values, formats, etc. Well, let me cancel because there is another way that you might consider doing a paste special. Now I've already copied, so what I can do is come down to the cell where I want to do that paste special and right click, and of course again there's paste options here in this little shortcut menu, but below that we have paste special and it takes us directly to the dialog box. So I will probably be using the right click today simply because I feel like it's fewer clicks and a little bit easier to get to paste special and all of its options. As we look at our first example today, we can see that we have someone who's decided to track what kind of miles per gallon they're getting on their cars, and sadly they've needed to purchase 2 new cars within a month or so of each other. And so car 1 has a little more information with it, but now they've needed to start again with car 2. As we look at car 1, I've left the dates off, but definitely if you were doing this for real, you would want to put in a date, you'd want to put in how many gallons were used to fill up the car, what the mileage was on the odometer, and then you would use a formula to figure out the miles per gallon. Now in D3, this is where it all starts, and so this is a relatively easy formula where you simply take the original mileage and you divide it by the number of gallons, and that gives us then the idea that maybe this is a hybrid car. Whereas when we come down to D4, what we need to do is write down that odometer number, but that can't be divided by the number of gallons. What we need to do is figure out how many miles we've driven between the first fill up at the gas station and the second fill up at the gas station. So we've done that in the formula bar, and you can see that we have C4 minus C3 in parentheses, and then we're going to divide that by B4 to give us our answer, and then we just simply copy it down those particular columns until we trade in or sell the car. Now, I would like to copy these formulas because I did some thinking with them, and I'd like to simply copy them to column I. Now, lots of times when we copy formulas, we use the fill handle. But in this case, if I were to use the fill handle, it would overwrite what is in columns G and H. So I don't want to do that. Well, what I want to do is right-click on D3 and copy, and then come to I3, and I'm just going to right-click right on I3 so that it also opens the shortcut menu. And then I can go to Paste Special, and I want to paste the formulas. Click OK. And now I have my formula for the second car, and if I look at the formula bar, it has adjusted for H3 dividing by G3. I might also want to do the same thing with D4, where I can do a right click and copy, and then come over to I4 and again do a right click right on top of I4, find Paste Special, and then Formulas and OK in the bottom right. And this now gives me the miles per gallon for the second fill up for this car too. And as I look in the formula bar, it has again adjusted so that I have H4 minus H3, which gives me the correct miles for what I've actually driven on this trip, and then divided by G4. Now you'll notice that column D is all just 2 decimal places, whereas in I3 and 4 I have 4 decimal places and even 5 decimal places. So while I copied special and copied the formulas, I did not copy the formatting as well. For our next example, I've decided to use text values, but this also works with numeric values. And in this particular example, what has happened is we have a short list of names, and lots of times you'll see in spreadsheets where you have first name in one column and last name in another column, and in an effort to just combine names and save space so that you can print things easier on one page, sometimes people will then combine those names in one column, as I've done here in D. And the way I did that is kind of the old-fashioned way to do it, but it is called concatenation, where I've taken the last name, added in a comma and a space, and then combined all of that with the first name so that all of it is in one column. Now, if I were to hide columns A and B, because really what's the point of having first name, last name, and also combined names? Nothing happens. But let me undo, because this is what happens lots of times. People will say, well, what I need to do is to delete these columns because they're not needed anymore. I have the names the way I want them. But watch what happens when I delete these columns. Now, because I have a formula based on columns that are no longer there, I also don't have the information in my column. Oh boy, let me undo. So how do I fix that? How can I delete columns A and B but still retain the information that I want to keep in column D? Well, what I can do is select those names, do a right click and copy. Now here's something you may not realize, but you can actually paste right on top of what you've copied. So I'm going to go right back to D2, do my right click, choose Paste Special, and I'm going to paste values. So it's the values, not the formula, but it's actually the answer to the formula that I'm going to keep, and click OK. Now when I look at the formula bar, I no longer see a formula, I only see the name. And now I can go to A, B, and even C, do my right click and delete, and the names are retained. Going back to our first example for just a little bit, I've really decided that this column D with 2 decimal places and column I with 4 and 5 decimal places kind of bothers me. So what can I do about that? Well, of course, I could use the Format Painter, or I can click in any of these cells in column D, do a right click and copy, and then I can come over to column I, select those cells that really kind of bother me here, do a right click, paste special, and I can paste formats and click OK, and look at that. Now I have 2 decimal places for both of those numbers as well. Our next worksheet is a little puzzling, but it has some examples that we want to look at. And we're going to start with comments and notes. So as I look at A4, you can see this sort of purplish triangle in the upper right. And when I click on this cell and maybe even hover over it a little bit, it says, well, you know, this is a comment that I've added in, and my hint that I have a comment is that triangle. Now, as I come over to F4, then I have a red triangle in the upper right. And again, it says, well, this is a note, and I should even be able to look at that note in a little more detail. But I have comments, I have notes, and I might decide that I want to copy them, whether it's to the same worksheet or to a different one. Well, I can do that again by using Paste Special. So let me come over to my comment, and I will do a right click and copy, then go to a totally different worksheet that's blank, and I'm going to do a right click, Paste Special, and as I look at the top of this dialog box, our 4th choice here is Comments and Notes. Click OK, and I have that same little purple triangle in the upper right that says this is a comment. So I could very easily do that. Now let's go back and find our note. Do the same thing. I'm going to do a right click on that cell. I'm going to copy, come over to Comments and Notes worksheet, and I'll paste it in a really different place. Do a right click, Paste Special, Comments and Notes, again in this dialog box about the 4th choice in the upper left, click OK, and now I have that note as well. So very easy to use Paste Special to copy over comments and notes. Returning to our worksheet that has the original comment and note, we can see that above that in cells A1 through D2, we have a really small table that has a border around, well, every cell. And we might decide that we want to copy that information to another worksheet, but we don't want to carry the borders with it. Well, we can do that by using Paste Special. So let me select those cells, do a right click and copy, and then we're going to go to a new worksheet here. And at the very top of that worksheet in A1, I'm going to do a right click, Paste Special. Now when we look at the dialog box this time, we're going to look at the second column where the second choice is All Except Borders. So we'll click that, click OK, and we have copied those numbers, that table, into a nice new clean worksheet, but we did not copy the borders as well. I've returned to our worksheet that has the table with borders, it has the comment, it has the note, and it also has a column that is wider than the rest of the columns on this page. Now, sometimes when you are setting up for printing especially, although even just for consistency within a spreadsheet or within your worksheets in general, you may have set up a column and it's exactly the width that you want it to be, and you'd like to copy that width to other columns. Well, notice what happens here, because I'm going to actually click where there is text in that column, and I'm going to do a right click and copy. Now you might assume that it's going to copy the text as well, but watch what happens when I go to another worksheet, and I'm just here in H1. I'm going to right click, paste special, and in this dialog box in the second column, the third choice here is column width, so I'll select column widths, click OK, and notice that it has only copied the column width, not the text. So paste special allows you to do very specific kinds of copying, this one being the column width only. I've returned to our original spreadsheet where we are determining the miles per gallon, and I just have sort of randomly added in some more gallons, or at least projected some gallons and mileage in columns B and C. Because what we might want to do is do some other kinds of copying and paste special. And what we're going to do is look for a way to copy and then paste not only a formula, but also the format. And D7 has both a formula, as we can see in the formula bar, and it has a format of only 2 decimal places. So let's do a right click and copy. And then I'm just going to come down to the bottom here in D11. I'm going to right click and again do a paste special. And when we get this dialog box, on the right hand side I'm going to go to the 4th choice, which is formulas and number formats. Select that, click OK, and now I have been able to copy that formula, and it's all adjusted beautifully because it's now referring to rows 11 and 10, and it has the 2 decimal places for the correct format. That could be a great help, especially when you're working with multiple worksheets, but even within the same one, to copy the formula and retain the same format is a great help. Sometimes what you need to do is find the values, especially at the end of a year, and you don't really want to copy the formulas because you want to start, say, a new worksheet for a new year. And so here we have December sales totals, and I'd like to keep track of where we were at the end of the year in December, but I no longer need the formulas to tell me how I derived those particular numbers. So what I want to do is copy those numbers and their formats to a new worksheet that will start January's information. So what I can do is select those totals at the end in column G. I'm going to right click and copy, go to a new sheet, and this may not be where I want to permanently put them, but for right now I'm going to right click, paste special, and in this paste special dialog box on the right hand side I can paste the values, not the formulas, but the answers to the formulas and the number formats. So I'll select that, click OK, and then I need to widen that out, and now I can see that I have the answers to the formulas from December, but now I have those answers for January and the report that I'm going to create here. Did you know that you can do math without writing formulas? Well, believe it or not, Paste Special lets you do math. And in fact, that math doesn't even show up in the formula bar. So let's do some examples. So here I have in A2 and B2, I have the numbers 5 and 10. Well, let's say that I want to add them together. So what I can do is come over to the 5, right-click and copy. Then I can go to the cell that has the 10, right-click, Paste Special, and add them together. Okay, and now that 10 is a 15. And you'll notice in the formula bar, it's just a 15. It in no way shows that I added 5 and 10 to get the 15. Well, let's move over to subtraction. Now, when you subtract, you have to be a little careful because you need to copy the smaller number, and when you paste it special then onto the larger number. So let's go with the 3 and 10. I'm going to right-click, copy the 3. I'm going to then right-click on the 10, paste special, and subtract. And when I click OK, we get the answer of 7. Now again, it doesn't show how I got that answer in the formula bar. Well, let's go on to multiply, where we have a 15 and a 2. So I'm just going to right-click and copy the 15, come over to the 2, right-click, paste special, multiply. 15 times 2, okay, it is 30. Well, let's look at divide, because again, we have to be a little careful. You will copy the small number and paste special onto the larger number. So I'm going to right-click on the 5 and copy, right-click, paste special on the 20, select divide, click OK, and I have my answer of 4. Pretty amazing. For our last two examples, we are going to use this list of fruit in column A and then the pies that we want to make in column B. If I were to just simply select A2 through A9 and copy it and then just paste it in a regular fashion, the blanks in A5 and A9 would overwrite the information that is there in B. But I don't want to do that. I want to skip the blanks and leave whatever is in column B already in column B. Well, I've selected A2 through A9, so I am going to do a right-click and copy. Then in B2, I'm going to do my right-click, paste special, and this time in the very lower left of this paste special dialog box, I'm going to say I want to skip the blanks so that I don't copy blanks over to where I am pasting, and click OK. And now I have that complete list. Chocolate and pecan are still there, they're safe, and everything else has copied over into column B. Now these are very specific circumstances where you might need to do this, but you can see how that could be really helpful if that's what you need to do. Now let me also then select the pies here in column B and right-click and copy. And I've decided that I want to use those pie names as column headings because maybe I want to put in the hours of preparation it takes. Maybe I even want to put their ingredients in different cells. So I definitely need to have column headings as these pie names. Well, I'm going to come over to D1 and right-click, paste special. And if I were to just regularly paste, they would paste vertically on my page. But what I want to do is come down to the lower right to transpose. Now transpose will change those vertical entries into horizontal entries instead. So transpose, OK, and now I've copied those pie names across my spreadsheet, and so then from here I have the column headings and I can continue with whatever I wanted to do. When you create spreadsheets from scratch and you don't plan them out really well, sometimes transpose, changing vertical to horizontal or horizontal entries to vertical entries, can save you so much time and effort, and it is an absolutely great tool. To learn even more, be sure to visit mymcpl.org/online learning, where you will find great resources such as Universal Class, LinkedIn Learning, and Learning Express Library. Be sure to join us every week as we premiere 2 new videos every Wednesday and Friday at 1 o'clock. You can find us on Facebook at MCPL 360, or you can find us on YouTube at our MCPL MO channel, where you can find our MCPL Consumer Technology Resources playlist.